What's up, everyone? If you do not know me, my name is Denzel Mensah. I'm a certified life, personal development, and relationship coach. I'm also an ENFJ 911, social sexual in the Myers-Briggs and Enneagram system. And today, what we're going to be talking about is compliments, flattery, giving compliments, receiving compliments, and things along that nature. Let's get it. All right, so 6 years ago, I made a spontaneous speaking video, which is essentially a video that I used to make back in the day when I had just put up my iPad and then I just start talking, no edits, no pre-planning, any of all of that. A spontaneous speaking video on hollow flattery. And in that video, I spoke a lot about my experience when it comes to giving compliments to people, and also how they might receive compliments, and then identifying when other people give compliments, and just resistances that some people could have and things of that nature, and even times when people might have had a hard time either receiving my compliments or thinking that my compliments maybe were like insincere, just simply not true. If you haven't seen that video yet, and I know it was a long time ago, so many of you probably don't even know that exists, I'd still recommend checking it out, even though it's old, because a lot of those themes are going to be brought back into this video as well. But essentially what I want to do in this video is build off of that, because even 6 years later, it's still something that's very fascinating to me, and I continue to witness this a lot. Now, in that video, I referenced another video that I did with my best friend David, an INFJ. You guys might already know him. And Albany Andalus, she's an INFP. And in that video, there is an iconic scene where I got triggered, for lack of better terms, by something that David had said in response to something that I had said, and then it sprung a whole conversation.
He's here to come about more through dance and even through exercise.
David's a great dancer.
I'm okay.
Let me tell y'all, he's a great dancer. He won't say it.
But y'all don't realize, well, y'all probably do realize, he gasses everything.
I don't.
You really gassing her all day. Not that it wasn't.
But the thing is, but it's genuine. And it's
nobody saying he's not genuine. I'm not saying
I think it's true. I think it's true. I think what I do is I put a spotlight on things that are actually like good. So because I like being credible. First of all, David is very, very critical. So
it's not true. Okay, no, yeah, okay, fine. Fine.
It's not a bad thing.
Yeah. So, David's very critical, so I'm actually very slow to even suggest movies to him or like overhype it or whatever. And because I always try and get to the perspective like other people. But I'm positive, looking at my audience, thinking my audience, if they were to see you dance, that they would agree that you are a good dancer. You might not think that of yourself, but they would agree. So if me telling them that is, oh, David would be a great dancer, and I just put a spotlight on it, I don't really see that much as like gassing it, because it's not like hollow flattery. In the same sense of whatever things I said to you today, I may have put a spotlight on it, I brought attention to it, but it's not like, oh, I'm just trying to get something, I'm just throwing hollow flattery out there. It's true. It's just that maybe somebody else wouldn't have said it, but I chose to put a spotlight on it.
I feel like you're always coming from a genuine place.
Thank you.
You know, I feel like it's because like one's own resistance to whatever like their own like small days. So you just try to emphasize that, you know, we'll be probably sleeping on ourselves, you know.
And I think that's how I became a life coach to begin with. But you got this. Do you see this inside you? No, man. No, like look at this. I see this such a great thing.
A lot of times there's just like those qualities in ourselves.
Yeah.
But when you people like that, so that's gonna drag us.
I wasn't trying to say it was hollow. I don't think that. I don't know how you got that to be synonymous with gassing. Maybe that just comes from the interpretation of gassing.
Well, I think it's also from like a repetitive pattern that we've had of such things, like even from like our NFJ male video, where it's like he'll go around, he'll say, "You get a compliment, you get a compliment, you get a compliment," and I'll go over to one person, I'll just give them like a big paragraph. You know, I'm so deep, I go really down there, and it's like, oh well, I don't really think that it's like that. Like I don't think there's really much like of a difference, as long as you know like whatever's being said is genuine. Especially like, you know, when it comes to people's birthdays, I think I just have more of an ability. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I have more of an ability than maybe you do to be able to make someone feel as special as they are at that moment. And it might. It depends on maybe like how well I'm able to know the person.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I will never say anything that I do not mean. If you can't sing, I'm not telling you that you can sing. If you can't dance, I'm not going to tell you that you can dance. You know, I'm not that type of person. I will always find a way to finesse. I'll always find a loophole, avoid the question, stuff like that. Yeah.
Lengua mime. We need subtitles. Right?
Lengua mime. Yeah, I'm gonna put the subtitle there. Define what that is.
Lengua mime. Actually, I don't even know the actual translation.
We'll find out.
But we can, you know.
Yeah.
Lengua mime. Spanish. Or the.
Now, in hindsight, I can acknowledge what I did wrong and what I could have done better. What I should have done, which is actually what I do a lot nowadays, and probably even back then I did, but just not in that exact moment. But regardless, what I definitely still think that could have been better in that moment is made it very clear that, in my opinion, David is a great dancer. That way, it's just a data point. It's just like, hey, it's my opinion, and that's what I think, and I just wanted to let y'all know. I shouldn't have made it like as declarative. I was passionate and I was excited to, like kind of brag on my friend. I'd watched him in church and several other instances, weddings and all of that, where as soon as he would take the dance floor, I watched people around him like get very excited. Other people have told me like, yeah, no, David can dance. So from that, I was like, okay, I was confident in my opinion, not only being my opinion, even if he disagreed. But I could have still made it clear that it was just my opinion from the jump, so that way he wouldn't have got as bashful about it. But the thing that had really ticked me off at the time, if you hadn't noticed from that clip, was when he said that I had a tendency to gas people. And I had even put the Urban Dictionary definition of gassing in there, which essentially means lying, to hyperbolize certain things that you might say, which to me is an assassination of character in a way. It's discrediting. In that moment, whether David was intending to do it intentionally or not, I saw it as him discrediting anything that I'd say, even when he went as far as to say like, yo, you've been gassing Albany all day, which was essentially, from my understanding, saying like, yeah, you've been like showering her with praise and compliments like all day or whatever like that, indicating that, yeah, you doing that, the frequency and how you do it must mean that you don't really mean what you're saying. Or even if you do mean it, it's not really that valuable. Which to me, I was upset because it's like, I think the most important thing is knowing that what I'm saying is genuine, that I actually genuinely believe what I'm saying. I would never say something that I do not mean, which in my Hollow Flattery video, the first one, I spoke about how I would never tell somebody, and I always say, if you can't dance, I'm not going to tell you that you can dance. If you can't sing, I'm not going to say, in my opinion, that you can sing. I avoid saying anything that I do not mean. So if I'm saying something to you, if I say that I like your jacket, if I say that this is that, boom, 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 that means that I actually mean what I'm saying. And regardless of whatever you might think, this is just how it is for me. Now, it must be made very clear that since then, me and David have actually talked a lot. And even just yesterday, we spoke again, or the day before yesterday of me recording this, because recent developments that made me go back to him that we'll get to. But I just want to make it very, very clear that me and David, we have squashed this. This is old news. It's not really something that's bothering me anymore. It's not bothering him anymore. We actually laugh about it. And he's literally said that he's grown from that. He's admitted like some issues that he had back then with that. And we both have been able to like grow from that experience. So this is not in me like trying to attack David or anything. It's just using that story as something that maybe other people could relate to. And it's relevant to the rest of what I'm going to say in this video. So recently I had another friend bring up to me that her boyfriend had deceived her in a way by giving a half-truth. The half-truth was essentially that, I don't want to get into the details of what it is, but I want to give enough information so that everything could just make sense. The half-truth was something that the boyfriend was doing to try to praise the girlfriend, which, is my friend. And she ended up finding out that like, okay, like what you were saying is not even fully true. And the boyfriend claimed like, well, I was saying that because I want you to feel like a queen, which my friend then said something along the lines of, the fact that he was telling this to me because he wanted me to feel like a queen pretty much means that I'm not really, like, he doesn't actually view me as a queen. And also on top of that, actually, let me read it verbatim because I do not want to put words in this person's mouth. So the girlfriend had said that she didn't think that he was faking it because the shit he said after is where she got feisty. She said he did it to make me feel like a queen. A queen. I'm like, if you have to flatter me to make me feel like a queen, that also implies you think I'm not one. Like, I don't need someone doing that for me. I already know he wanted to boost my ego. I find that insulting. So I had responded saying, wow, I really appreciate this perspective because it's not something that at all I'd have ever in my life thought of. And then she had said, because flattery and just normal compliments are different. And the issue seems to be flattery. So I don't know. I think the key, at least for me, is that it feels insincere. If someone showered me in compliments all the time, I wouldn't mind if they felt real. Which, then becomes a whole different thing. Like now we'd have to distinguish, okay, what's the difference between flattery and what's the difference between compliments? Which to me, I view flattery as well as you're just saying things either so that you can get something from the person, or how they say oh, flattery will get you everywhere. You know what I mean? Or you're saying the things, but you don't actually mean it, or both. Like I said, I am never, ever, ever saying things that I do not mean. And personally, I don't think, I can't really remember times, honestly, where I was saying things to get something from someone. But I don't want to claim that as strongly as, I know for certain that I do not give compliments that I do not mean. But the second one where it's oh, am I saying this to maybe get something? Again, I do not personally remember any examples or times, but I've lived 30 years right now, so I don't want to say never in that situation or that scenario, but I will say I very much avoid that. And it's different if I know that, okay, me saying this genuine thing could result in me receiving this, but that's still not the core motivation behind why I'm saying whatever I'm saying. I hope that makes sense. But let's continue just further. In response to what I had said, the friend said, it assumes that I have insecurities or need a boost in the first place. It shows that the person isn't attentive to my needs or tuned into me at all. They do it as a caring act, but it's out of touch. And so I had responded saying, yeah, I guess what sucks is because I actually do mean every single time. It's actually 100% sincere when I compliment and shower someone. But it's so deep and affectionate and expressive that I think the repetition does make it seem cheapened. So that's when I sort of lean into my more ISTP side, I guess, and say a lot less so that when I do say the same thing, it can be more meaningful. And then I added on to say, I see. Yeah, I appreciate that. For real. Again, I would have never even came to this conclusion about why it would ever insult someone on my own. So that helps for if I see this happen with others. For me, and this is me just trying to present the perspective from my side, just to, she gave her perspective of oh yeah, it makes me feel insulted, which again, I earnestly would have never even assumed that somebody would feel insulted in this way. So that was genuinely helpful, and I wasn't trying to say they were wrong. I just wanted to present oh, well, maybe my perspective could help. So I said, for me, I always saw it as instead of me assuming the person has insecurities, it's more so expressing the deep feelings I have within that I can't contain for that person anymore in that moment, and I shower the person with it all, but an effort to, 1, release all the pent-up affection within me, and 2, to help them see what I feel and think about them. Already assuming they know they're a queen, for example, I do this to actually let them know that I too also see the queen energy. Because I guess someone can be a queen and know they are, but foolish or just average other people could be blind to it or even see the person as less. So it's actually my way or attempt to show the person that I'm in alignment with their own view of themselves. But I see the other side now and I'm really mind blown. This was all, again, genuine. I was processing it. I was really thinking through. And, that conversation continued to go on. And it reminded me then of something that had, funny enough, just happened within that same hour. I was texting somebody else who's very dear to me, and this person had sent me a 33-minute long audio on Telegram. And this person immediately said, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry that I sent such a long audio and this, that, and pretty much just apologizing for how long the audio was. And I went on to pretty much, I guess, overly, like, go over the top with this person. And I expressed to this person, like, oh, no, it's totally okay. Like, I am so honored even that you took 33 minutes out of your day to, like, send me an audio and to share things about me, about you, about yourself to me, you know. And you know, I just pretty much like continue to express, like, I'm always honored, like, whenever like she's taking time out of her day to do stuff like that. Like, you know, I see this quality time and this is that. And I know this person has other people that they could be talking to, but then they decide to like share with me. So I'm never, pretty much that was all to say that I'm 1000% okay with the 33-minute audio. And it's not like this person rushes me anyway. And then the person responded in a way that I was not expecting. And the person said, you flatter me way too much. And I was just like, oh, noted. So I shared that with the girlfriend that I was speaking of earlier. And I said, yeah, I guess like this topic of flattery, like it's really interesting because this had just happened. And now it's making me reconsider. And maybe in that moment, you know, I probably could have just kept it at, oh, no, you're good. I enjoy your 33-minute audios. It's not a problem. Which is the truth too. But now it's not going over the top and making it seem like I'm trying to compensate for something, which then could probably come off insincere, even though it was not insincere at all. And that's not even to say that this person, even though they use the word flatter, probably does not believe that I believe what I'm saying. I plan to actually talk to this person soon. We're going to meet in real life. I'm going to bring it up to them. I'm just like, hey, like when you said that comment, like, what did you mean by that? Like, I couldn't even tell the energy. Like, you know, you flatter way, like with all the whys, like, was it like a,
wow, like you flatter me way too much.
Like, you flatter me way too much. Like, you know, like there's a difference in energy. And this is where text conversation, I don't really like, I mean, I text a lot because it's all that we have to go off of. But this is where like texting can become like very difficult. And I'm just like, because depending on the energy, especially as an ENFJ, my FESE is like, I have to see the facial expression, I have to feel the energy, all of that. So that's why I'm actually waiting to have this conversation in person. But I brought it up to the girlfriend person that I was discussing with. And she essentially had said that it's interesting how this seems to be an issue with me. And other people seem to also have had moments where it's like, oh, like you're flattering or whatever. And she, I guess, was trying to psychoanalyze, like, does this mean potentially that you're not really as secure in your compliment giving or even genuine in your compliment giving as you think? Because once people might claim it as insincere or whatever, then you get triggered. So I feel like a secure person would not be triggered by these kinds of things, which might be indicating that you're probably more anxious in these situations. And that anxiousness is probably causing you to, is probably actually what's causing other people to react in this type of way. Things of that nature, which I was genuinely trying to be open to, but it just did not resonate. To me, what I was thinking was like, no, I see this as a gift, me complimenting somebody as a gift, and I just don't want, like, there's a difference between somebody being neutral about a gift that I'm giving them, somebody being elated about a gift that I'm giving them, and then somebody just completely, for lack of better terms, shitting on a gift that I gave them, you know? And so when I complimented David in that video and said, oh, he's a great dancer, he could have just said, I mean, he did say, like, oh, no, I'm all right, which, you know, and I understand, again, that, like, in that situation years ago, like, I did, like, continue to declare, like, no, like, you guys don't understand. But then when he said this guy, what you guys don't know about this guy's, he be gassing shit. And it's like, you know, he didn't say it like that, but he be gassing stuff, you know what I mean? Then it's like, oh, like that was where it was like record scratch, you know what I mean? And so in this situation as well, I was just explaining to the girlfriend person that, well, no, I just don't want the gifts that I give somebody to be like slapped down, like, or like, that was probably cheap. You know, I don't want it to be cheap, and like, that's like, ouch, you know, like, spent a lot of money on this, whatever. You don't have to be elated. I understand. And, you know, I'm not entitled to your, oh my gosh, thank you. You know what I mean? I get that too. you're not obligated even to accept the gift. And I try to keep on making that clear. Like, people are not obligated to receive my compliment. That's where the neutrality comes in. It's like, okay, this is what this person thinks of me. It's their opinion. Cool. But if they are like defecating on it, that's where I then have an issue, because now it's, again, I feel it's like assassination of my character or discrediting me. That conversation went on with this girlfriend person to then continue to psychoanalyze in the sense that, well, have you ever actually tried to get over your own feelings about, what's going on or whatever, and then try to actually like seek like what's going on for that person instead? Like, why like they are asking or why they are retaliating in that way. Maybe it's just something that they don't need or even like want from you, and yet you keep on doing it and this, that. And pretty much she was saying, I think as kindly as possible as she could, to like just get over myself and to like actually seek from their perspective, like, what is the issue here in that sense, and instead of, whatever. Which my assumption had always been, well, I think I already know what it is. It's like most people are not used to receiving compliments. We live in a world where we can follow each other on Instagram for years and you will never like my post. Even if you see it and you're like, oh, that's a nice whatever. Like, you won't like it because for whatever reason. And sometimes it might even seem weird if I like your post, even though we never talk. But because I'm just one of those people who's like, hey, if I see it, I like it, I'm gonna comment on it, then I guess that throws people off. And then kind of like, those, no offense to Mormons, but like, we've all probably run into like those Mormons on the street where it's like you're walking to your car in the parking lot and then some man walks up to you and is like, hey man, nice hat or something like that. And you're like, oh, thanks. And you think they're just a regular person, but then they're like, yeah, no problem. And they use that as an opportunity to like ask a little bit more about you. And then they want to start selling you their Mormon book. And it's like, wait a minute. So then did you actually even really like my hat? Or was this just a strategy to be able to, get to wherever, like flattery will get you everywhere kind of thing. And so then once you run into enough Mormon types of people, then you start to just be skeptical of everybody's compliments. There's also people who, like I talked about in my hollow flattery video, where they just give compliments that they just don't mean. I talked about a friend who literally had just said that this person on stage did not do well. And then once the person on stage was walking past, then this friend went out of his way to be like, oh, girl, you did so great. Boom, 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 boom. And then when she walked away again, and Jamila had asked, like, didn't you just say that you, and so did you actually like it? And he's like, no. But you got to tell these people this stuff or whatever. And I remember being like, no, you don't. If you don't have anything nice to say, you don't have to say anything at all. She probably had other family and friends who would have told her that she did great. You don't have to lie to her. I didn't say anything to her. I didn't even think that she did bad, but she didn't do well enough for me to go out of my way to say anything to her. So why'd you feel the need to like go and say something to her? That's just outright lying and over flattering for no reason. There wasn't even any angle behind that. It was just saying it just cause. And so when you run into enough people like that, I can understand why now you become skeptical of people who are who have a tendency to flatter or to give their opinions and or like compliment in such ways. I actually did end up reaching out to David once again the next day after talking to this friend of mine, because I really wanted to like, I was like, what, maybe I haven't done enough of a good job to seek out what was going on for the other people in that way. And I'm always trying to perpetually learn. I'm always trying to perpetually gain insight and just honestly better myself. And when I reached out to David and I shared with him pretty much all of what I just shared with you guys, then I was like, so yeah, as I was talking to this friend of mine yesterday, this is kind of what she said, and boom, boom, she saw the same clip. This is the feedback that she had. I wanted to know, like, and I'm not trying to drudge things back up or anything like that. I just want your honest opinion. What did you think of this? Like, what was going through your head when, I gave those compliments at that time and stuff of that nature? And what David said was very validating and helpful for me. it was a lot of things I had already assumed, but to hear the person actually say it themselves, instead of me just assuming like, oh, this is probably what's going on, it was like, wow, this is really helpful. Because again, I always just assumed this, and I was even telling the girlfriend person, you know, like, yeah, you know, like, well, I just think that it's because people aren't used to this, and boom, boom. And so it's easy for them to project onto me like, oh yeah, he doesn't mean it, which is understandable because they run into enough people who don't mean it, and boom, boom, boom. But to hear the things from the horse's mouth, like David essentially said, he said quite a few things, but the main points were that, number one, he saw it as like, he compared me to Luffy from One Piece. I'd never seen the show, but he said that Luffy had a tendency to give compliments and, you know, affirm people, and he genuinely meant it. But what he didn't know was that as he was doing it, he did not understand his own strength. So he had this big hand that he's patting the person on the back with as he's complimenting them. And it's obviously overwhelming the person and giving them pain. And David said simply, not everybody's able to handle that. So then it's not that you have to lessen who you are necessarily. I don't want you to change who you are, but you have to know who you can give those type of compliments to and who you should like scale it back with in that kind of way. Then he also went on to say a second point, which was that honestly, it had more to do with himself. He was so critical of himself. He was so critical of, you know, how much better he could be and stuff like that, that because he couldn't even believe for himself that he's good at whatever, then that means that he also could not believe it when another person says certain things about him. And so he said this is something that he had to work on, and it was a projection, and now he's able to much better receive such things and work better with that. And he openly said, this is often more of an issue with the other person who's receiving the compliment than with the person themselves who's giving the compliment.
Well, this was all very interesting, even somewhat amusing, because I don't see why she took it so intensely. And I think that reveals a lot on her part, but I don't know the woman, so I'm gonna leave it alone. As for, because this was a long time ago. You know, I didn't mean to hurt you when I said that. I didn't think it was as scathing. And I believe I apologize for it. If I didn't, I apologize now, because I didn't mean to hurt your feelings when I said it. And I totally understand your perspective and how it's like when you're trying to gift someone something, they just slap it down on the ground. It's like, okay, you didn't have to receive it, but you didn't also have to disrespect me in my efforts to try and honor you, because that's essentially what it is. I think that's essentially what it is. It's an effort to honor someone, and they almost spit in your face. Now, when the best way I can depict how I initially felt when you would have like this outpouring of compliments, or what felt like an outpouring of compliments, is One Piece. And I'm not sure if you've ever watched it, but it reminds me of when Luffy, and I love Luffy because it's hilarious, he would he would be complimenting somebody, right? And he'd be laughing, and it'd be obviously like coming from a good place. But when he would compliment somebody, he would be using his huge, big-ass hand, and he'd be smacking the back of, smacking their back. And so, like, he's obviously trying to uplift their spirits. He's genuinely trying to encourage them and get them to be happy. But while he's doing so, he's vigorously slapping their back continuously while he's doing that. And instead of it being like a small pat on the back, you know what I'm saying, which is what he's trying to do, it's like Luffy's strong. He doesn't realize how strong he is sometimes, and he's vigorously hitting them on the back, and the person is like, they would like to take the compliment, but they're more focused on how vigorously he's doing it. I say all that to say, when I initially received the outpouring of compliments, it was good and I appreciated it, but it felt aggressive. It felt vigorous, like, take this, you know what I mean? And I know that might come with like somewhat sexual. That's not what I mean. I'm not trying to make it seem aggressive, but that's how it felt when it wasn't just like a passing compliment, because I don't think everybody can handle that, which is my point, right? I think personally, when it comes to people who are more critical of themselves and more hard on themselves, I think we don't accept compliments because we truly don't believe them. We truly don't believe that we are greater. And so when you come with your perspective of like, oh, you're amazing, blah, 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 you're this, you're that, oh, man, it makes us feel like we're even more of a fraud, right? And so it's with her aggression towards your compliments actually reveals more about her, in the same exact way that my resistance towards your compliments said more about me and how I received your compliments rather than you actually giving your compliments, right? And it says about you that you would love to be complimented and appreciated, and so therefore that's what you give. But when people resist, it's a reflection of how much they can actually receive. And so they can only receive little because they view themselves in the moment as little, right? And so all of these things working together actually clash with one another, because I think in your effort to honor someone and to give them what you think would be uplifting and praise actually comes off as overwhelming because of how it's delivered, right? And so I think there's a bunch of different metaphors that we could use in terms of delivery, and I don't have to go over those with you. But I hope that makes sense, because I think this is another one of those areas where I don't want you to come away feeling like, okay, I'm being too much. I want you to come away with, okay, not everybody can handle even the good things that I have to give. And you have to be measured with how you approach people, because I think that stuff should be reserved for the people who can handle it, right? And I'm admitting my own faults in this in the same way. And so like I think I'm better now because I understand we had multiple conversations about it and stuff like that. And I think I'm just personally more mature than when I first, received those compliments and stuff like that. And I can take them in a different type of way. And I just don't think she's at a point, or people like her, people who are critical in their minds, is like, thank you, but I also low-key feel like you're lying. And that's where the disingenuous perception comes from. It's like, okay, you're doing too much because I know I'm not as great as you say that I am. Do you see where the thinking comes in from now? Where it's like, okay, because of the self-criticism and because they're trying to be better, but they recognize that they're not where they want to be. Now it's, okay, you're doing too much because I know I'm not this, I know I'm not that, and you haven't even seen enough of this. And do you see what I'm saying? It's more about the self-talk that people have rather than so much as it is about your character. It's how they're responding to it says more about how they view themselves, ultimately. Hopefully that makes sense.
I was kind of mind blown. I was like, yeah, this is what I assumed, but then I was starting to think after talking to the girlfriend person that, dang, like, have I just been projecting this whole time? I know I've been assuming, but like, okay. And so that was great. And then I ended up talking to another friend of mine who also had like similar issues. And he said pretty much the same things what David had said. He said, yeah, no, dude, like, that's really what it is. Like, I have always been, nervous of giving compliments or whatever in this way because I just feel like, it's hard for me to believe what other people say about me or whatever. So and he said, even from me sharing all of this, it made him be like, dang, I actually know some people in my life who are also like that I always am like, nah, and I'm just shooting it down. But now I should probably like be more open to what they're saying. And I have to remember that it's their opinion and I should appreciate that. I should accept it as a gift. And maybe they also just need to express that. Kind of like what I said about the affection thing, where it's like sometimes a lot of affection just builds up within me and I just have to say it. I'm an effusive person. I'm an expressive person. And so if I see it, I like it, I'm gonna say it. Whether you're a guy or a girl, all of that, and there's not an angle to it 99.9999% of the time. It's just, I just literally wanted to say this compliment. I just literally wanted to, whatever. And I wanted to make it clear, you are not obligated to accept it. It is fine. I'm not going to get like, and what I mean by that is that if you're just like, I personally disagree, but thanks or whatever like that. Which again, that example with David in that clip, I understand what I learned from that. But like in most other situations, it's like, yeah, like if you're just like, I just disagree, but thanks anyway, then that's cool. It's like, okay, as long as you understand, like, it's my opinion, it's my perspective. I have another friend who helping me out with something, and then she said that she had to send a video explaining it or whatever. And she was like, but I look like a gremlin in the video. I was like, okay. But she sent it, and then I ended up saying like something along the lines of, I was honestly able to tell her like, okay, and by the way, you didn't look like a gremlin to me, just so you know. And then she's like, oh yeah, the hives on my neck and this happening. And I'm like, personally, I didn't even really notice all of that. And I just really just didn't. Even when I went back to look, I still personally could not notice. Maybe somebody else could have looked at it and be like, oh yeah, no, she looks like a gremlin. But not me, and it's just my opinion. So with all that said, this is what I've learned about giving compliments and the whole point of this video. Let's break this down. Let's wrap it up. Let's land the plane, if you will. Number one, I think it's understandable why people become skeptical of those who give compliments at a high frequency, especially if they themselves are not the types of people to give many compliments for whatever reason. It could be a myriad of reasons. But if they themselves cannot see the reasons as to why they give compliments, reasons as to why they would give a lot of compliments, then they're definitely not going to be able to see why somebody else gives so many compliments. And especially if they're the type of person who mainly only gives compliments if they're trying to get something, if they're trying to deceive, etc. Number two, I've learned that it is a lot better to scale back how I'm delivering the compliment. Like, just like I had said, even the night before I even spoke to David and he gave me the Luffy example, which is going to be in my head all the time now. But I've even learned how to do this now over the years, that if I'm giving a compliment, instead of, even though inside I feel very excited and all of that, I actually do this with Jamila. Jamila, my wife, my beautiful wife, is an amazing singer, in my opinion. I believe that she's such an incredible performer. She's such an incredible songwriter. She's such an incredible singer. And I love it. I love her. I love her voice. I love all of that. And whenever she performed, ever since I've known her, whenever she'd perform, inside me, I would just, and I just want to tackle her, you know? I'm just like, you just did so. I just want to shower her with all of what I feel. And she has never once thought that it was ingenuine or insincere, but I could see how it overwhelmed her at times to the point where she's like, thanks. And I'm like, oh. So now we have this like kind of inside thing where it's like every time she performs, she knows how I'm feeling inside, but I approach her and I dilute it by a lot. And I'm like, after her performance, you know, I'll go up to her and I'm like, babe, you did your thing up there. Good job. And I just leave it at that. And she'll start laughing at me because she knows what I really feel and what I really want to express in a way. And she knows it, but we have this, you know, she knows that I scaled it back for her sake. And maybe it's the same thing with the friend that I was texting that night when all she really needed at that point, or maybe not even needed, but all I could have really said was like, oh, now you're good. The 33 minutes is not a problem. I like listening to your voice text, so it's fine. But, you know, I went over the top with genuine words, but I went over the top that made her be like, yo, you flatter me way too much. Because pretty much she's probably thinking like, I was not expecting all of that. Which is funny again, because the next day when I had listened to the voice text and everything and I started responding, and she said, thank you again for listening. I know it was so long and I'm so sorry. And I'm thinking, didn't you just have a whole thing about me telling you that it's not a bother? Which to that, I learned my lesson. I ended up responding like, you good. I enjoyed listening to it. Kept it simple. So that's my number two. Like, even if, you know, if you're somebody who's like me, who just feels it a lot very deeply and all of that, keep it chill. Because a lot of people cannot handle Luffy's hand. And I think that's fair. It's not really a deficiency with them, especially with things that they've like experienced and all of that. But yeah, like just know and be able to keep it, you know, in that way. Thirdly, and this is for people who are receiving the compliments, I'd be careful. And this is actually what the second friend that I talked to, after I talked to David, he said that he would never really assume somebody's being ingenuine or insincere. Like, he said that's like a very dangerous territory. And I was like, yeah, I know, right? Like, so I would be careful to kind of slap down somebody's gift to you. Try to learn to just be neutral. Try to, even if they're not saying, in my opinion, try to at least take it as, okay, this is what this person claims that they think about me. And just grant it. Give them the benefit of the doubt to assume like, okay, that's that. Rather than being like, oh, you're gassing me. Oh, you're flattering me. Oh, that you don't really mean that. You know, stuff like that. Because like David said, usually that's coming from a place of your own insecurity. Unless if the person actually says, okay, I didn't really mean it, whatever. Which in the case with the girl and her boyfriend, I get that. I want to make that very clear. I get that, you know, there was still a half truth in there because what the boyfriend had said, even though the motivation behind it was to make her feel like a queen, what he said to do it was not really true. And so the truth behind what he was saying was true, but the way that he went about it was the lie, and the girlfriend just didn't like that. And I think that's completely understandable and valid. And we should not go through such means. I think that's another thing. Like, do not be a person who's like using half truths and deception or whatever to deliver your compliments. But yeah, I think all in all, like I said over 6 years ago, I really want to put death, like absolute death, to hollow flattery. Because it's killing all of us already. It's keeping us from being able to genuinely engage with other people and express ourselves. And now, because of hollow flattery, then we have more people in the world who are skeptical of other people and their compliments than people who are not skeptical and are more open to sharing it. You know, many people probably want to give more compliments, but because they know that people are skeptical, then they hold it back. I take more risks with that. And even clearly then I still am like, well, you know, when somebody just slaps it down or claims it as ingenuine or insincere. But yeah, let's be more careful with that. So, what do y'all think about everything I just said? Please leave comments, have a discussion, talk about it. If you disagree with anything that I said, please respectfully, you know, go ahead and explain why in the comments. And even though I'm saying all of this, I'm not trying to make myself seem like an authority or anything like that. I'm just sharing my thoughts, my opinions. I'm just trying to get the conversation going on this and help people to see different perspectives on this concept of flattery and compliment giving and stuff like that. And I'm trying to receive more insight myself from those of you. So now that I've given all of my thoughts, what are y'all's thoughts? Help me calibrate, and let's calibrate with each other. So thanks for watching. If you want to talk about this more one-on-one, you can visit me at denzelmensah.com, where you can book a session with me, and we can literally go deeper into all of this. And, you know, if you even just want to ask me questions or whatever, then just have an hour of time to like speak with me. Like, you can book a session with me there. And yeah, thanks for even watching this far. I appreciate you, and do not forget, you matter. Done. Thank you for taking the time to watch that video. And if you enjoyed that, please like and subscribe. It actually really helps out my channel a lot, so that more people who actually care about what I want to say can actually find me a lot more easier. Also, if you did enjoy it, then maybe you'll enjoy a lot of my other content as well. So be sure to check out some of my playlists, where you'll be able to find a lot of my older videos and older content. And last but not least, if you would like any profiling sessions or coaching sessions, be sure to check out denzelmensah.com, where you'll be able to book me and you'll see the rest of my services. But thanks again, and have a great day.